Hi friends, happy Constitution Day. And since it's Constitution Day, Miss Ferris and I have chosen to read books having to do with things that are part of our United States, like presidency and the flag, things like that. So the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and that's how we make all of our laws, and how when people have a disagreement and they go to court, the Supreme Court deals a lot with those big laws, and they use the Constitution to decide who's right. So I want to read to you Grace for President, written by Kelly DiPuccio, pictures by Leyuan Pham. So Grace for President. Here we see lots of presidents. Our first president of the United States, George Washington, different presidents from the past, all the way up to Grace. She wants to be president. And here it says, on Monday morning in September, Miss Barrington rolled out a big poster with all of the president's pictures on it. Grace Campbell could not believe her eyes. Where are the girls? So she noticed that all the presidents that we've ever had have been men. And she's like, where are the girls? That is a very good question, said Miss Barrington. The truth is, our country has never had a woman president. No girl president ever? Grace asked. No, I'm afraid not, said Mrs. Barrington. Grace sat at her desk and stewed. No girls? Who'd ever heard of such a crazy thing? Finally, she raised her hand. Yes, Grace? I've been thinking it over, and I'd like to be president. Several students in the class laughed. Well, I think that's a star-spangled idea, Grace, said Mrs. Barrington. In fact, we can have our own election right here at Woodrow Wilson Elementary. The snickering in the room stopped. Grace smiled. Would anyone else like to run for president? Miss Barrington asked the class. Nobody raised their hand. Becoming president was going to be easy, Grace thought. So they're in September, which is what month we're in, and Grace has decided she wants to become president. The next day, Mrs. Barrington made an announcement. In the name of democracy, I have invited Mr. Waller's class to join our election. Their class has nominated Thomas Cobb to be their presidential candidate. Grace's heart sank. Thomas was a school spelling bee champion. His experiments always took a blue ribbon at the science fair, and he was captain of the soccer team. Becoming president wasn't going to be so easy after all, Grace thought. So now she has to run against someone she thought she was just going to be elected because she was the only one. But now there's an opponent. The teachers put the names of all 50 states and the District of Columbia into a hat. Everyone except for Grace and Thomas got to choose a state. I'm Texas, said Anthony. I'm New Hampshire, said Rose. I'm Michigan, said Robbie. What does the number 16 mean? Each state is assigned a number of electoral votes. That number is determined by how many people live in that state, said Mrs. Barrington. Each of you will be a representative for your state. Altogether, our country has 538 electoral votes, Mr. Waller explained. On election day, the candidate who receives 270 electoral votes or more wins the election. Why 270? Asked Rose. That's more than half of all the electoral votes, Mr. Waller said. Becoming president really wasn't going to be so easy, Grace thought. Grace came up with a campaign slogan. Make history, vote Grace Campbell for president. Thomas came up with his own campaign slogan. Vote for Thomas Cobb, the best man for the job. Grace listened to what issues were important to the students, and she made a list of campaign promises. A peaceful school, no bullies. A cleaner school, no littering. Better hot lunches, no more fish stick tacos. Thomas made up his own list of promises. Free tutoring, free soccer lessons, fish stick tacos every week. Grace made campaign posters and buttons. Thomas made posters and buttons too. So they're both listening to the people to see what the students want, and then they're making promises based on that information. Each week, the teachers set aside time for the candidates to meet with their constituents. Polls were taken. Voters were making their choices. So over here, we see all the people that support Grace, and over here, the people that are supporting Thomas. Grace continued to campaign. At recess, she gave speeches. During lunch, she handed out free cupcakes. After school, she held rallies. Meanwhile, Thomas wasn't worried. He had cleverly calculated that the boys held slightly more electoral votes than the girls. At recess, Thomas studied his spelling words. During lunch, he worked on his latest science experiment. After school, he played soccer. So he's kind of thinking that all the boys will vote for him. And since there are more boys, he'll win. So he's not meeting with the people. He's not doing speeches. He's not holding rallies. He's still continuing kind of about his own life. Even before the election, Grace made good on her promises. She joined the safety squad. She organized a school beautification committee, and she volunteered her time in the school cafeteria. So she's actually following up on the promises she made. She's keeping her word. In early November, Woodrow Wilson Elementary hosted a special Election Day assembly. Grace and Thomas took their places on stage as the school band began to play. Henry was the first representative to approach the microphone. The Yellowhammer state of Alabama casts its 9 electoral votes for Thomas Cobb. Fletcher said, the last frontier state of Alaska casts its 3 electoral votes for the best man for the job, Thomas Cobb. Hannah called out, the Grand Canyon state of Arizona casts its 11 electoral votes for Grace Campbell. And so it went. State after state after state cast their electoral votes. The scoreboard in the gymnasium kept track of the totals. The voting demonstration was quickly coming to an end. Clara approached the podium. The Badger state of Wisconsin cast its 10 votes for my best friend, Grace Campbell. Grace looked at the scoreboard. Thomas had 268 electoral votes. She had 267 electoral votes. There was only one state still unaccounted for, Wyoming. So they're almost tied. There's just a difference of 1 vote between them. Who do you predict is going to win? Okay, let's see. Thomas grinned. Grace felt sick. Sam walked up to the microphone. He looked at Thomas. He looked at Grace. He looked down at Grace's handmade flag. Sam didn't say a word. What are you waiting for? Thomas whispered. The band stopped playing. All eyes were on Wyoming. Finally, Sam cleared his throat. The equality state of Wyoming casts its 3 electoral votes for Grace Campbell. The gymnasium erupted in loud cheers and a few boos. Mrs. Barrington approached the podium. With 270 electoral votes, the winner is Grace Campbell. Thomas looked stunned. Grace hugged Sam. Why did you do it? She asked. Sam handed Grace his flag. Because, he said, I thought you were the best person for the job. She's the one that's fulfilled some of her promises, who's really working hard to help the other students. The following week, students in Mrs. Barrington's class were preparing for their career day presentations. Grace volunteered to go first. She stood at the front of the room and glanced at the poster still hanging on the wall. My name is Grace Campbell, and when I grow up, I'm going to be President of the United States. This time, everyone believed that she would. And there's like a picture of possibly in the future where she's accepting the presidential nomination and hoping to become president herself in the future. So my question for you today is, if you were president, what are 2 laws that you would want to go into effect? What are 2 things that you would want to happen for our nation? It could be for kids like you, or it could be for the whole world. What would you want as 2 things to change or to make happen if you were president? I can't wait to hear what you guys say. Have a great Constitution Day.